I'm going to be sharing with you 3 of the biggest spiritual traps that can come up on the spiritual journey while you're actually going on this journey. Because here's the thing, is that while you're going on this journey, there's going to be many things that come up that you don't expect. There's going to be many things that come up that block you from getting to the next level of your success, in your evolution, in your consciousness. And these are the 3 biggest things that people don't usually see when they're going on their spiritual path. So if you watch out for these things, if you stay alert, if you watch out for these things, you can actually make sure that you don't fall into these traps. So if you're new to this channel, what I want you to do is to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, because I do post a new video every single day. Also, if you want to work with me one-on-one to let go of your ego, reprogram your subconscious mind for success so you can align with your true life purpose and the life that you really want to live, that is not in alignment with the ego, but alignment with who you really are, then you want to hit the link that's in the description box of this video to apply for a free consultation to see if you're a good fit for the coaching program. So you got to realize when you're on the spiritual path, there's many things that are going to block you. There's many things that you might not think are blocking you, but actually are. That's the nature of a trap, is that you don't realize that you're in the trap until you've already fallen into it. The trap is very deceptive. It's very tricky. It's something that happens unconsciously without you realizing it, meaning that you don't have conscious awareness of the trap while you're being pulled into it. That's why it's a trap, because you don't know. You don't realize that you're being pulled into something in a very deceptive way. That's what the ego does. Okay, the ego likes to trick us. The ego likes to pull us into these tricks and little games, but you're gonna avoid these games by understanding what I'm sharing with you in this video. So the first spiritual trap that you may fall into, that you probably will fall into, is resisting low vibration energy. Because here's the thing, when you start to become more spiritual, what happens is that you start to raise your vibration, you start to become more conscious, you start to love your life more, you start to feel high vibration energy. But here's the thing that people forget, is that the reason why you were able to get to that high vibration state to begin with is because you accepted that you were at a low vibration state. And this is the biggest thing that I see people miss when it comes to spirituality. They learn how to raise their vibration, and then they start resisting low vibration energy, whether within themselves or somebody else. And they see lower vibrational energies as a bad thing, as something that's not good, as something that's a negative thing. Now, it doesn't feel good to be in a low vibration energy. I get it. It does not feel good in the body. It doesn't feel good when you have those lower vibrational emotions. But here's the thing, the only way to remove those feelings is to fully accept them and allow them to be there. That's the nature of spirituality. That's the paradox. Because as long as you resist those negative feelings that you feel, they're going to be persisting in your body pretty much until you accept them. And that's something that the ego doesn't want to do. The ego doesn't want to look at those feelings. It wants to run away from those feelings. But that's the thing. When you resist low vibration energy and you're not honest with yourself on where you're at in that moment, it's not truthful to resist that. Because if you feel lower vibrational emotions based on an event that happened, or maybe a friend came to you with a negative situation, maybe something happened in family, the key is to be truthful. Accept where you're at. If you're at a certain energy level, if you feel lower vibration, maybe just a little bit of anxiety, maybe it's not too much, maybe you're at a really high energy, maybe in that moment, you know that you feel a lower vibrational energy in your body. I'm not saying to allow it in the sense where you let yourself become victim and you let yourself become unconscious. I'm saying be fully conscious and be the full observer of that emotion and see it. See it 100%. Don't see it 50%, 60%, 80%, 100%. Shine the light on the darkness. Be with that feeling, because that's what transmutes that feeling into positive energy. Because that's how you get to a higher vibration, is by accepting the negative vibration as it is. Just look at it. Just look at it. Here, that's the beautiful thing with spirituality. You just look at the feeling and then it just vanishes. Maybe not right away, maybe not in 1 week, maybe it happens pretty quick. I notice sometimes I can shine my light on a negative emotion and it goes away pretty quick. Other times it takes longer, but you have to shine the light of awareness on the emotion. Accept where you're at. Don't lie to yourself. Don't pretend that you're at a high vibration if you're not at a high vibration. Be with the low vibration, because that's how you get to the high vibration, is by fully being in that negative energy. I'm not saying to surround yourself with negative people. I'm not even saying to persist the energy. I'm saying to accept it, because you got to realize what persists the energy is the resistance to that energy. That's what keeps the energy alive. It thrives off of resistance. That's what the ego is. Ego is resistance. You have to be fully with that energy. That is the only way to let it go. And of course, that's not at all what the ego wants to hear. The ego thinks, how do I get to the high vibration energy? How do I get from here to here? No, when you accept that you're here fully with consciousness, then you can get to here. That's the paradox. Stop trying to get somewhere in the future. Be where you are fully, and then you get to the high vibration. That's a huge misconception with mindfulness and spirituality, because we want to raise our vibration, we want to be in a high vibration, and then we start to be in the high vibration. But how did you get there to begin with? Go back to the steps where you started your spiritual journey. How did you get there to begin with? I'm willing to bet, because this is how it works, you were fully aware and accepted the negative emotion. And we can forget that sometimes. So remind yourself to never resist low vibration energy at any given moment. You need to accept. You don't need to do anything, but that's my invitation to you, to accept it. See what happens. Just accept the energy as it is, and it will go away. Notice your breath, become still, become present, and just allow the emotion to be there. If you just allow the emotion to be there, it stops becoming an issue. Maybe it doesn't go away right away, but eventually it will. I promise. It can't be any other way. When you shine your light on that darkness, it has no choice but to transmute into positive energy. Remember this on your spiritual journey. The second spiritual trap that people can fall into on their journey is a really big trap, which is called the spiritual ego. Here's what happens on the path, is that you start to learn about spirituality, you start to learn about who you really are, you start to learn that you're a spiritual being having a temporary human experience. You start to realize that you are not your thoughts. You start to realize that you are not the body. You start to realize that you are not the mind. And then here's what comes next through this process, is something happens that happened to me, happens to a lot of my clients. It happens to pretty much everybody on their spiritual path, which is a natural part of the process. So it's not like anything is going wrong if this is happening. This is a good sign. It's just a sign to look out for, which is called the spiritual ego, which means that the same ego that you let go of and that allowed you to get to the point that you're at right now on your journey comes through the back door and now starts to create another ego called the spiritual ego. But there's no difference between the ego and the spiritual ego. The only difference is that now it's based on spiritual content. So what the ego does is the ego judges people. The ego thinks that it's better than other people. The ego thinks that it's always right. The ego thinks that other people are bad, and the ego thinks that the ego is good. And the thing with the ego is that it judges people and it lives in a low vibrational reality. That's what the ego does. Ego is a low vibrational state. But then here's what happens, is that when you start to learn a little bit about spirituality and who you really are, what happens is that sometimes what can happen is that we begin to judge people that are at a lower state of consciousness than us. We start to think that we're better than those people. Now, I'm not saying don't create boundaries. I'm not saying don't isolate yourself and just be out there in the world and talk to anybody. You need to create those boundaries. But at the same time, it's important to remember that we are all one. We're all connected, and that we are not separate. And that when we judge somebody else for not being at a certain level of consciousness, that judgment is coming from the same thing that you let go of to begin with, which is, of course, the ego. Ego is judgment to begin with. Ego is judging the other. And it doesn't matter if that judgment is based on spirituality or if that judgment is based on their health or their diet or who they really are. Because who they really are is not what you think they are. Who they really are is consciousness. How conscious are they? Everyone's on their own path. Everybody has their own individual, unique path. And it's important to remember that when you judge somebody else and then we get angry at other people for actually being at a certain level of consciousness, that anger, it's very interesting how the ego works, because while we're judging other people for not being spiritual, the act of judging somebody else for not being spiritual is not very spiritual. It's not very spiritual. It's like, that person is not spiritual. They are bad people. And the energy behind that statement is not very spiritual either. It's a very ego-driven kind of energy. And the key is to realize that we are all one, that we are all connected. That person is not separate from you. They are an extension of you. And as long as you judge that person, you are judging yourself at a deeper level. Here's the paradox of the ego, is that while you're judging somebody else for being unconscious, you're keeping the unconscious alive, the unconsciousness alive within you. Because think about it like this. If you're judging people for not being conscious, in that exact moment, are you being conscious? You're maybe telling them to be conscious. Maybe in your mind, you're thinking that you're being conscious, but are you actually being conscious while you're judging that person? And it's impossible to be conscious while you're judging. You can be conscious of those judgments, but usually we're not. Usually those judgments consume all of our attention. The mind takes all of the energy, and now what happens? We lose touch with who we really are. That's what happens. So while we judge people for being unconscious, we ourselves become very unconscious. And that can happen sometimes. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's important to just remember and connect back with who you really are. To just realize, okay, everybody's at their own pace. Everybody's at their own level of consciousness, and that's okay. And the more that I resist where people are at, that it's keeping me stuck at a certain level as well. You got to realize not only is this going to affect that person, when we judge other people, that keeps us stuck as well. When we're judging other people, we are staying stuck in our own patterns as well, because that's what keeps the unconsciousness rolling. Consciousness is the key. Okay, consciousness is the key. So I'm going to share with you a better approach to this, because I understand the frustration, is to just be your full embodiment of self-love. Just be the highest version of you. Be conscious. Be fully conscious. Don't tell people to be conscious. Be conscious, because being is a much more powerful teacher than telling. Sometimes telling can be great. Other times, being can be a very powerful teacher. When you're being present to the moment, that teaches people sometimes way more than telling. Even if in that being state you feel some kind of negativity, even if that person's throwing a lot of negative energy at you. I'm not saying to be in that energy, sometimes you have to be. I'm not saying to let people throw the crap at you. I'm saying that if you're in a situation where there's crap being thrown at you, be with that. That will teach them much more than telling them. Because how did you deal with that to begin with? By being. When you be with the negative energy, that is what teaches people. That's the powerful teacher, is being in the energy. Being in the energy that maybe that person doesn't want to feel, that you don't want to feel either. But that's the ego, right? The ego doesn't want to feel. The ego doesn't want to be. The ego wants to do. The ego wants to think. The ego wants external solutions. Be with the energy, and that's what's going to allow you to let go of the spiritual ego. See everyone as an extension of you. We are all connected. Nobody is separate from you. Okay? Nobody is separate from you. As long as you judge the other, you are judging yourself. The third sign, the third biggest spiritual trap, not a sign, the third biggest spiritual trap is that we start to think that fear is not going to come up on this journey. We think that we've transcended all fears and now we're done. We've made it. I'm present to the moment. Fear is never going to come up. And now the journey is going to be smooth sailing. That's not the case at all. I got to a level of my spirituality where I thought that fear is never going to come up in my journey again. That everything's going to be beautiful. Everything's going to be rainbows. Everything's going to be sunshine. And sometimes that's not the case at all. As I go deeper into my business, as I go deeper into my spirituality, I take more risks in my life. Fear can come up all the time. Sometimes my clients think that fear is not going to come up on the journey. Fear is a normal part of the journey. Fear is what allows you to get to the next level of your life. No matter how conscious you become, fear can come up when you get to the next level of your life. Every single time you step up into that next level of uncertainty, you're forced to let go of a part of your ego. Maybe not your entire ego, but a little piece of the ego. And the ego runs off of fear. So it's only normal that as you begin to expand your spiritual journey, as you begin to go deeper, fears may come up sometimes. Sometimes fears can come up. Sometimes fears can come up, and it's a normal part of the process. Because that's a really false expectation to have, that you're never going to feel fear ever again, and that here you are enlightened as a spiritual master. Like, fear is going to come up. There's going to be highs and lows in the spiritual journey. There always is for me. There always is for my mentor. It's a normal part of the spiritual journey. The highs and lows come up. Some days you feel super, super high energy. Some days you're like super low and you're like, can I really do this? Can I really accomplish my dreams? You start to feel resistance in your body. It's normal. Don't give yourself an expectation that you have to be at a high vibration state all the time. It goes back to the first point. You have to accept that you're in a low vibration state. The fear has to come up so you can accept it and transmute it into positive energy. It has to come up. There's no other way. Fear has to come up. When I dropped out of school, fear had to come up. When I was investing in my mentor, taking my life to the next level, my financial fears had to come up to the surface. I had to process those fears. I didn't want to deal with those fears, but then there they were, rising up to the surface through my body, and I didn't want to deal with them, but there they were coming up to the surface. We don't want to deal with the fear, but we have to get to the next level. Every time you evolve, fear will come up. I'm going to say that one more time to condition your mind and your being. Let the downloads come through. Every single time you evolve, fears will come up. So when I invested way more money than I was comfortable investing, all those financial fears came up. It's like, oh my gosh, how am I going to make that money back? Because I was shifting my level of identity at the being level. Now, all that money that I invested, I made all of it back, and it's normal for me to spend lots of money. It's a part of my identity now. It's a part of who I really am. It's a part of not who I am at the core, but a part of my identity, because that old identity had to be peeled back. When I dropped out of school, when I started to record videos, I started to have all my fears about, can I give value to people? Can I really help people? Can I really do this? Is this really going to work? Who am I to share information with people? When you take the next level of your life, when you step into the next level of your life, fear is going to come up. And don't think that you're immune to fear now, just because you have the knowledge of spirituality. It may not infect you, it may not jab your being, but you'll still feel it sometimes. Maybe it's not going to impact you. You'll be able to observe it. You'll be able to allow it to be there. You're going to be much better at dealing with fear. I'm not saying that the fear consumes me. I experience fear sometimes, but the thing is that I don't allow it to consume my life. I just observe the fear, I allow it to be there, and I continue on my path, and I keep recording videos. So don't have an unrealistic expectation that fear is never going to come up. It's always going to come up, especially if you're committing to a new level of identity. It can't be any other way. If you're shifting to the next level in your life, literally an old part of your ego is sort of dying. You're sort of like letting go of that version of you. You're sort of like peeling back that old version of you. So of course it's going to resist that. It's like, oh, I don't want to go to the next level. Your higher self does, but your ego's like, nope, I don't want any of this. I just want to cut. I don't want this. I don't want to deal with this. That is your ego trying to pull you back. Observe that, allow that, and realize that fear is a normal part of the journey. Okay, normal part of the journey. It's going to come up every single time, especially right now. Look at what's happening on the planet. All the fear is coming to the surface. That's okay. Allow it to be there. Be in that uncertainty. Get to the next level of your consciousness. Because when you get to the next level, it's only when you surrender that fear is when you're going to get to the next level. Let the fear come up. It's completely normal. Okay, it's totally normal to experience fear on the spiritual path, and don't convince yourself that it's not. Don't lie to yourself. Accept that low vibrational energy will come up. And if you have an expectation that you have to be the high vibration energy all the time, you're going to resist every single time you feel fear and think that you shouldn't be when it's completely normal. I fall into this trap sometimes, I still do, and I've fallen into this trap so many times that here I am sharing it with you because it's super key to understand that you don't need to give yourself this false expectation that you're never going to feel fear ever again, that you're never going to feel negative emotions, that you're never going to have to deal with unconscious people. These are normal parts of the journey. In fact, that's part of your purpose, is to deal with those things and be conscious of them. So that's all I have for this video. Once again, if you want to work with me one-on-one to let go of your ego, reprogram your subconscious mind so you can align with your purpose and what you really want to be doing, not what your ego wants, what your true self wants, hit the link that's in the description box of this video to apply for a free consultation to see if you're a good fit for the coaching program. Have yourself a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.